special assignment on crimes that shook the nation.
The murderers were found, charged and convicted. That settles it. Well, at least that's how one of the persons in the documentary put it. Is this the much expected closure that many believe families of the slain judges deserve? Let's get to a quick review of what you've just seen. So you watched the documentary, and I'm sure you did with your family as well. You followed the narratives, the account, the opinions, and the entire research work that was brought to you by our documentary team. Thousands of people around the country were glued to their set during this broadcast, and I'm sure that the discussion has already started in your home. We'll get to the family of the killed judges to talk about it, and we'll get on social media to find out what the discussion has been so far. Already, our team is in the home of Kwabena Ejapon, son of late Justice Kwadwo Ejapon, and we'll be crossing over to them. The team is there, led by Roland Walker, and then we'll have that conversation. So, like I said, you've seen the documentary. We took you through the beginning, how the judges were picked up. We took you through the Gihok connection. We told you about the post-coup factors that all the narratives brought us. We spoke to you also about the PNDC connection, the investigations, how it went, the post-investigation issues that came up, and then we brought you a conclusion. My colleague Kojo Youngson joins me in the studio. Kojo?
Gifty.
We're doing night shift, aren't we?
What an event, indeed. It's worth doing a night shift for.
Certainly.
Isn't it?
Certainly.
Yeah.
And everybody is talking about it. Kojo, I'm wondering, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think only one word explains this phenomenon, who killed the judges. The one word is revealing. You see, some of the events that we have catalogued in this documentary, they span decades. So when you see them all put together in one 90-minute piece with coherent narration and explanation and insightful interviews done by our colleague Raymond Aqua, filling in the gaps, it all becomes one clear picture at once. And suddenly certain things that people ask questions about, the answers become kind of obvious, even though a lot of this information has been in the public domain for quite a while. So the question is this: was Captain Chikata and the PNDC complicit in the killing of these judges or not? Well,
that's one of the questions that I would love to hear Kwadwo Ejapon respond to. Like I said, we're in his home, and we'll be crossing over shortly to our team there to find out. They sat through the over an hour, about an hour 30 documentary, and they've watched it. So that is one of the questions. Does it settle it for him? Because in the documentary, Kwadwo, you get to the bottom where you hear Kwadwo Chikata say over and over again that he is innocent of all of these charges. And you see the back and forth that we get to feel in the Amatekwe, what's supposed to be the Amatekwe confession of final words, and how it all went. Kwadwo Chikata says he is not to blame in this.
Well, you can imagine if this was a case before a court today, they would take evidence for both arguments, wouldn't they? They would take evidence for the argument that Captain Chikata and the PNDC were the ones who gave the order, as Amatekwe supposedly said during his trial. So if you look at the evidence in that for that argument, you would have the captain himself and his accusation, what he said during the trial, which is on record. And then if you want to take the argument against, what is the evidence for that? Well, there is one recording that was supposedly done by a priest and a national security operative. And
Asasi Jima and
yes,
the Reverend Father.
That tape didn't, well, it didn't record anything. Then we have Flight Lieutenant Rawlings rushing to the execution grounds. And making another tape, a tape which also cannot be found. The only person who has gone on record as having heard the tape is Kojo Yanka, who published it in the Daily Graphic, I believe.
Right.
And
that,
then
of course,
he got
had
suspended for it.
Exactly. That
so,
had repercussions.
So if you weigh the two sides of the argument, which of the evidence is weightier? The confession of the man who got killed, who never officially changed his word until he got killed, or the tapes that we never heard, but we have one witness who is an editor, a journalist, someone from our fraternity, who reported that he heard those tapes and reported on the contents.
Kojo, and maybe we can start from the beginning. There's this issue about the Gihok connection that came to play at the beginning, where they say that Amatekwe was a staff, one of the affected staff at Gihok. And this case, of course, went before one of the judges. And so there was this, if you listen to the narration, there was this idea that Amatekwe may have been aggrieved. Amatekwe may have had something against one of these judges who was killed. So let's begin from the top, from the Gihok thing. And what I mean, throw it around in our head to find out whether or not that was enough to make somebody want to kill another human being. I don't know.
Well, Amatekwe does not deny that he killed them. So if we're asking whether that is the evidence, whether that is his motive, well, he doesn't deny that he killed them. So is there another motive? Is there another motive? Could there be anything else that was the reason why? Let's think about it. In the commission of a crime, you must have motive and opportunity.
Right.
So Gihok is a potential motive. So let's think about the opportunity. You would have to go to the homes of these judges, pick them up with soldiers, put them in a vehicle.
And in that opportunity, Kojo, in that opportunity lies some of the clearances that you have to go through.
That's what I was seeking to point out.
So
drive along several kilometers of road during a curfew. Roads during a curfew, all you see are soldiers out at night, no civilians, and they are checking. There are checkpoints. You can't drive, 1 kilometer without being stopped and questioned.
Right.
So this person, this Amatekwe, if we are saying that he did this alone, then somehow he managed to go into each judge's house, grab the judge, put them into this vehicle, drive
back
all the way to that place. God knows how many kilometers, 40-something kilometers, including the Temamoto way, without anyone ever stopping to question him, why have you got judges in the back of your car?
Because as we go along, we realize that he had a pass. He had a pass to do what he was doing.
Who gave him that pass?
Because
he doesn't have the authority to give himself a pass.
And that's one of the questions that were never answered. That's one of the questions. So go ahead.
So if the question is the Gihok connection enough to give him a motive, it's logical. But the most important thing is that he does not deny killing them. He doesn't say, I didn't kill the judge. He did. So whether that was his motive or not, or whether he also needed the order from above, to go ahead and do it, that is something that ultimately we'll have to weigh the two arguments.
We all seem to be looking for the answers. Then there was the PNDC connection, where you hear somebody like a lawyer Okujeto saying that this happened at a time where the PNDC government was sort of putting out publications or saying things that that's in his opinion sought to incite the public against the judiciary, because and other people said it in the documentary that Rawlings at the time had threatened, even before he overthrew the government, had threatened to punish the judiciary for freeing AFRC members. So that's another connection there. And I don't know how it plays out in your mind, how you put these two together. Well,
I don't know how much of it you want to leave to politics and how much of it you want to consider actionable, incentive. Because, they were not happy with the judges for coming back to review cases that they had sat on and convicted people on, to come back and review them and reverse these cases. No, there's no way you can expect the PNDC to be happy.
It's logical that
about
nobody
it. It makes sense they wouldn't be happy. Even today, when after democratic elections, new governments come and overturn the decisions that their predecessors made.
Actually, some make it a campaign promise.
Indeed, and they get voted into power on the back of that. So this is not new to Ghanaian politics. The fact that they would be unhappy with them, I think it's clear. What then becomes the leap is whether or not they were unhappy enough to sanction their deaths.
Okay.
And if they were, would it be just these 4 judges?
Would it be just
these 4 victims, the 3 judges and 1 military officer? Would it be just them? Or would there have been others?
Well, Kojo, there is a bit about, so from the top, the Gihok connection, the PNDC connection, then we can talk also about the investigations and the things that went on, which led to, I mean, one of the team members at the moment, as we speak, is being on exile still in the UK. Yes. So we'll talk about the investigations and the sort of things that went on, and then we'll come to the National Reconciliation Commission and the work that they did. We'll try and get to the conclusion as well. But Kojo, let's cross over to the home of Kobneje Agyapong. His father is one of the slain judges. Sir, thank you very much for your time this evening. Mr. Agyapong, if you can hear me, thank you very much for your time this evening here. We're on special assignment. I believe that you watched this documentary from A to Z. Can you hear me, sir?
It's a very difficult documentary for me to sit through, and because it brings back a lot of very difficult memories and the flood of memories. So it's something that's through the grace of the Almighty God, myself and our families have been able to get through, and it's not an easy thing to go through this again.
I just want to find out from you that before we published this, there were a couple of people who said this documentary would actually bring closure to a couple of people, including yourself, people who were directly affected. I mean, you were very young then when it happened. The talk of the emotional trauma this must have caused you. You've lived through it. You are a politician. Indeed, you live in the same political dispensation. Now, I'm wondering, does this give you closure?
No. I mean, let's be clear. I think we may never get to the bottom of the matter, but I'm pretty sure I've said it before. Some of these things, those who did it, I'm sure they know it, and quite clear. If you listen to what the perpetrators themselves said, they didn't have any links to the victims. These were very young.
Mr. Agyapong, I need to let my viewers and our listeners hear you properly. We're not getting that at the moment. Let's fix this and get back to you. Sincere apologies there. But we'll get back to Mr. Agyapong that was actually a very crucial point for me. I wanted to find out whether or not this gives him closure, and he was just going about it. He says that it looks like we'll never get to the bottom of it, which is what Kojo seems to be the theme. The theme that runs through from beginning to end. It looks like you never get to the bottom of this, especially when most of the actors have died.
I don't know if it's fair to say we'll never get to the bottom of it. I think perhaps we still haven't got a definitive conclusion to the matter. But so much in only this documentary has been revealed, so much has been added to the narrative, so that we are at a point where people can draw certain conclusions.
Okay.
Now, those conclusions might be colored by people's politics, people's own, prejudices, but there is more information. There is more information thanks to this documentary. And so, if we never get a court trial of Captain Chikata or a court trial of any of those names that were mentioned and implicated by those who were found guilty, then we will have to rely on the information, the raw data that this documentary has revealed. And there is enough there for people to draw a conclusion if they wish.
Okay. We'll also have a Brigadier General Nunu Mensah, who's the former Chief of Defense Staff, on the line. As we try to fix Mr. Kobneje Agyapong's line to get better sound, let's engage you, sir. Sir, thank you very much for your time this evening here. This is Special Assignment on Joy News. General Nunu Mensah, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I'm
asking, yes, please ask your question. I'm listening.
Okay, you watched the documentary, did you?
I did watch most of it, yes.
What do you think?
Well, what I thought about it, this 1982, that was 6 years ago. 36 years ago. Nothing has changed. We're trying to get to the truth, but the truth is very far from us. As the time goes on, becoming farther and farther away from us. I was an actor and as a member of the PNC, the Chief of Defense Staff. I thought I knew what happened. Many people thought they knew what happened, but the actual truth is there are many truths. My truth, President Rawlings' truth, so many truths, Kwame Japan's truth. But the real truth as to what happened, we may never live to see, to know it. And as Archbishop Zepama Bakal said, with the murder of President Kennedy, Americans are never near the truth. And this is a similar situation in which we find ourselves. I mean, we know, but anybody who says that the PNC were behind this, I mean, I was a member of PNC, so never something that the PNC as a body did. A few individuals, did orchestrate the whole thing. But
a few individuals? Who are these individuals?
What you heard it? I mean, you heard Amatekwe, you heard Amatepe, you heard.
We had various versions of the story.
Yes.
So which of the version do you believe fits into what constitutes the truth for you, as far as the members who were involved?
None of the versions came close to my truth. I give evidence before the Special Investigation Board, the Azuka Committee. I don't know why my evidence was not played.
Okay, what's your truth? I mean, what's your version of the truth? You said that all of these things that you heard in the documentary doesn't come close to your truth. What's your truth?
Well, my truth will not matter to you because I said that.
It does matter.
There are so many
things.
There's a jumble of all kinds of things. As to whether President Rawlings, at that time, chairman of the PNDC, knew. I mean, I, for example, believe that he could have known about the arrest of these people. But the actual murder, I don't believe that he was a party to it. He knew about it. And this is based on my own evidence that I saw on that morning following the murder of the judges, when the bodies were found. So what I got to know, talking to him and watching his mood, I believe that the murder took him by surprise. So anybody who said that he knew about the murder, I would vehemently oppose that.
So if I get you right,
known about the arrest of the people.
The arrest, you mean the abduction? Sir, do you mean the abduction of the judges?
Yes.
Okay, so if I get you correct, you mean that former President Rawlings may have known about the abduction, but not that they were killed.
There were two events: the arrest of these people, then the murder. There were two different situations. I'm saying that, I even doubt, but it was possible that he may have heard or known about the arrest. But the actual murder of these people was another different
thing. Sir, let me correct this, or help me if I am wrong. You keep saying arrest. Were they arrested or were they abducted? Because the story we know is that they were abducted.
When they go and pick somebody from his house, did abduction, you won't arrest him. If you came to pick him from my house,
did they go with an arrest warrant?
But I'm saying that from my own understanding.
Okay.
And I've been in this business of intelligence and counterintelligence almost all my life. And what I could deduce at that time and now, if I then deny that even he knew about President Rawlings knew about the arrest, was following the morning of the then not even a murder. I went to find what the arrest. I heard that they've been abducted, or let's use the word abducted. I went to go about to find out whether what I knew, he also knew. And I met him, that morning. And I went to him. When I asked about the abduction of these people, he was utter shock. They're talking to him.
So that's what makes you believe that he did not know about the killing of the judges.
No, it is when you are interrogating somebody or when you confront them with facts, the way the person reacts to it, you can surmise that from his mood. It's what a terrible thing to happen. What a stupid thing to do. Something like that. And that if he knew about it, would have made those expressions to me.
Okay. Right.
So this is what I would summarize from his mood. And subsequently, when you confess that they were murdered, I mean the shock of it, talking to me, is what I conclude that if anyone told me that he knew about the murder, I would vehemently say no, he didn't know about it.
Okay, Kojo, you have some questions?
Yes, General. I wonder, in this documentary, you heard Captain Chikata vehemently deny his role. Did you believe him?
I cannot defend him as I'm defending President then Chairman Rawlings.
Why not?
I cannot defend him.
Okay.
I cannot vouch. I cannot say that. I can vouch.
You can vouch for former President Rawlings, but you cannot vouch for Kojochi Kata. So at the end of the documentary, he says something. Kojochi Kata says something about people who have tried to frame him, about people who were not happy with him, people who wanted to get him out of government, people who wanted to discredit him. He puts out a couple of names: Justice Azukrab, Lindsay, Reverend Jobo, Mr. Quist, who is dead, Mr. Amwe, and he mentions you as well.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that I appeared before the SIB board. I'm surprised that I gave an interview. They interviewed me and I spoke to them. I made certain statements. I don't know whether you could have a report of this and then read what I said to the board. That is something that you didn't have it. I don't know whether you ever had it but it wasn't shown in this documentary. I on that day, following the method of the judges, I went to Gonda Barracks, and then I saw Amatekwe walk into a room. So I followed him. And when I followed to the room there, I saw it was his office at that time, and I confronted Amatekwe. You see, when I got to Major Aqua was involved in those who were abducted. Major Aqua left the army since 1966. But he was also that of personnel at GIHOC. And I was the chairman of GIHOC at that time, the Champion regime. So I knew about his involvement with the Commissioner, Parliament House, Major Aqua, having dealt with him as that of personnel. So you have some grudge against Major Aqua.
Okay.
This is what my own estimate. So when I saw him at Captain Jakarta's office, I looked at his face and I said to him, Mr. Mateko, where's Major Aqua? Looked at my face and never said a word. At
that time, Major Aqua had already been abducted.
No, they have been abducted, yes. I was actually told by a cousin of ours. I was related to him. We grew up in the same house in Winneba. So I knew him long before I came to the army. So I knew him, a family member.
And this meeting, you say you were there with Captain Kojochi Kata and Amatekwe?
No. I want to go there back to talk to President then Chairman Rawlings at the time. But as I was standing with him, and I left Chairman Rawlings, I saw Amatekwe walk into a room. So I followed him. In fact, then I had been told that Major Aqua had also been abducted by Major Kelson, another cousin. They're all deceased now. So when Major Kelson came to tell me that Major Aqua had been abducted, my mind went to Amatekwe. Because I said, look, I was chairman of GIHOC at the time. And Major Aqua then was director of personnel. And Amatekwe had been involved in some action at Parliament House, and they had been dismissed by Major Aqua. So I knew we would have a grudge against him.
Okay.
So I, my own intelligence work, knew that if Major Aqua had abducted, he would know something about it. So when I saw him walk into a room, I followed him a few meters away, into the room. That room happened to be Captain Jakarta's office. He was standing in front of him. So I called his name and said to him, where is Major Aqua?
Okay. Hold on for me, Mr. Nunimesa. Let me go over to Kojoji Ajapon's home and get his thoughts. Sir, thank you very much for your patience with our lines there. You were making a point before we lost you. Do you want to continue?
I was just trying to say it's been 36 long years, and we want to thank the Almighty God for bringing us this far, getting through this very difficult period. And there have been quite a lot of gaps in what I've seen. Maybe we may never get to the bottom of the truth. Perhaps the one who conducted the documentary would have done us a lot of favor by talking to the two gentlemen you just mentioned, and also had their comments, because I see that they are not part of this documentary.
Who are these two gentlemen?
We may never get back to the bottom of the truth, but of course, I mean, then Chairman Rawlings and Captain Chikata.
Okay.
unfortunately, it appears that they were not part of this documentary, and I would have wished to hear what they would say about this 36 years on, and maybe it would have given us a whole new dimension to it.
Okay, what they say
said during the National Reconciliation Commission.
Okay, hold on, Coach. I'll have you come in. But what they say, Mr. Japan, what they say, what Coach Chikata says, and what former President Rawlings says at the NRC, you listened. Do you believe them?
No, but we've heard that before. I mean, I was at the NRC too myself, and so I put up across what I knew and what I saw, and I believe that if you were doing a new documentary, then it would have been fair for you to speak to former President Rawlings and then Captain Chikata as well. And you know, I think that without that, I don't see this as complete. Yeah.
Kojo, you have some questions for
yes,
him.
Mr. Japan, obviously you've had to grow up your entire life with this cloud hanging over the head of your family, this uncertainty about what happened, what really happened and who was behind it. But what has been your belief? Obviously, as family, you would have picked up bits of information over the years. What has been your belief to date about whether or not Captain Chikata, former President Rawlings, and others in the PNDC directly ordered the abduction and killing of your father and others?
I think my views on these matters have been well documented over several years. I mean, as far back as the 90s, I held several press conferences. And so my views on these matters are not new. And I think that, as I said, 36 years on, I don't want somebody to say Abnai Japan's truth or somebody's truth. The fact of the matter is we all knew what happened. And I believe that at the end of the day, a lot of people like me believe that those who really carried out the act were not the ones, they were ordered to do it. So the order could have come from a few people, and we all know those people. So I think at the end of the day, we may not ever be able to get to the bottom of the matter, but as a country, I think we've moved on.
Okay.
We just have to move on.
We just have to move on.
The suffering that we have been through and the things that we have gone through as families is very difficult. So I think everybody should respect the privacy of those of us who suffered through this. I thank the station because sometimes it's important for Ghanaians to know what has happened in the past and the history of this, you know, of our country, and document it properly so that we can all learn lessons from that. At the end of the day, I'm a very divine person, and I believe in the ultimate power of the Almighty, and the Almighty knows what happened. If you looked at the SIB report, it reached a certain conclusion. Certain decisions were taken. The issue about what Amatekwe said before he was shot and all that. So I think it's a good lesson for Ghanaians, younger ones who don't know what has happened in this country, perhaps to know. But more importantly, for us to learn lessons and not to treat ourselves in that manner again. I mean, the struggles that we went through as a country through the 70s, the 80s, and that's why we should not take our democratic dispensation for granted at all. And that people sacrifice their lives, people sacrifice their businesses. I mean, just look at the policeman who, just for doing his work, has had to live in exile. Jacob Yidana died not too long ago. All the police investigative team were hounded out, and most of them died in misery. So it's a difficult part of our history, and perhaps the fact that some people have tried to cover this up, it's a matter for us to live in the hands of the Almighty. Vengeance, they say, is God's. I have lived with it. There's no bitterness in me at all towards those who I believe superintended this very heinous crime. So, but as a country, I think that we can continue to treat ourselves better, and to know that put the national interest first. For me, that's what matters. I mean, My father and his colleagues have been honored by the Bar Association and the judiciary. Their bust is sitting there as a symbol that they are people who sacrifice with their lives, and all of us have to sacrifice for our country. I think there's no point really finding out, really, even if you find out who did it. So what? I mean, at the end of the day, it's been 36 years as a country. Let's heal our country. Let's work together as one people and care for our citizens. And that's very important, because I take myself and the pain that I've been through even over the last 2-3 years, the treatment that I've gone through from my own party. And sometimes you go back and compare that to what I went through as a kid, and you begin to look at things that can happen in this country. People, for some reason, can gang up, say things, untruth, propaganda, lie about you, attempt to destroy you. And so these things have happened. So let's move on as a people. Again, I do believe that everyone has a conscience. Everyone has a conscience.
Mr. Japan, I'd like to barge in a little.
I'd
like to barge in a little.
Yes.
And just to find out, you just said something about the treatment that you had from your party. Help me understand how you put that together. What the sort of treatment you say you had from your party,
and what I think you know that.
And what happened to that? No, I'm just trying to find out how it relates.
You know what happened.
I'm trying to find out how it relates. No, hold on for me, sir. I'm trying to find out how it relates to what happened to your father, because that's what we were talking about earlier.
Well, what happened to my father is part of our political history. And you said I'm a politician, don't you say that? And
you
that's
are.
a fact. And I'm just, when I superimpose this, what has happened to what I've been through in the past, and the pain that I had to suffer for being part of this tradition, and I look at all this, you begin to wonder how this world can be. But at the end of the day, as I said, if you believe in the Almighty God, and you believe that vengeance is God, you have to let go. I mean,
okay. So I would like to take your very final comment.
That was a very traumatic part of our history, and as Ghanaians, let's move on as a people. It's been 36 long years. The family is very appreciative, especially of the Ghana Bar Association and the judiciary, for honoring the memory of my father and his colleagues who died working for Ghana and working for the interest of justice in our country. And some tried to destroy them, but at the end of the day, their memory lives on. And I think that as politicians and as a people, all of us have to learn lessons from this and treat ourselves better.
Okay. I was going to bring in Janonu Numensa for his final comments, and then I come to you for your final comment. And Janonu Numensa, do I still have you there?
Hello.
Right. You've heard all that.
No, I didn't hear this. I mean, I couldn't hear this.
Oh, you didn't hear him? Well, basically what he's saying is that at this point, we as a nation, we should be able to move on. It's been 36 years. He believes that we should move on, but we should draw certain lessons from what has happened regarding how we treat people, regarding the sort of politics that we do around here. Do you share in that thought of let's move on? It's been 36 years.
Okay, the line is pretty bad, but I know Kwaba's point very well. You know, I know him extremely. He knows him very well. But I agree with him that 36 years on, you know, we will never get to the bottom of this matter. The whole truth, we will never. Like many of these murders, you know, presentation and whatnot, you will know something about, almost close to the truth, the whole truth. But the actual truth, you will never. I think if you know, it's happened, and we have to learn lessons from them. But to go on and on and on, where will it take us? You know.
What are the lessons you think we should learn from? What are the key lessons you think politicians, especially, or people in the security forces?
The line is pretty bad.
You said we should move on. I mean, just like Mr. Japan is saying, let's learn lessons. What sort of lessons should we learn from this?
Oh, lessons. I mean, what lessons? I mean, the whole act was terrible. I mean, you know, I resigned from the PNDC a couple of months following the murder of the judges. And one of the reasons why I resigned was the murder of the judges, the abduction and murder. Never in my character. We were a democracy. Or even if we were not a democracy, even if we were not at that time. to abduct people and take their lives without proper trial, proper course of the law. Okay. I mean, it's something that I would never endorse, you know. Okay. And that was the reason why I resigned from the PNs at the time and left the country and went to prison for quite some time. So, I mean, I condemn, it's a terrible act, you know, and I think we learn not to do such a thing again in our political history. It was terrible. Okay. But like Commander said, you know, you will never get to the whole bottom of this. You will never get it because, I mean, there are things that many people knew and they wouldn't speak for fear that something would happen. Even now, I know some people who knew something, but they will never say it. But if you read the SIB report, I mean, I appeared before them. I gave an interview to them. I said the whole truth. But if you read that report and following from what I said, you know, you guess some truth, but not the whole truth. That's what I'm trying to make. Okay. You know, so okay. let the matter rest and let us move on.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Nunu Mensah, thank you so much for your time. Brigadier General Nunu Mensah is the former Chief of Defense Staff. Kojo, do you have any final words for Mr. Japong before we let him go?
Yeah, Mr. Japong, once again, obviously this must have touched some raw nerves going over some of this history. And you've talked about how you're willing to let it all go. But you are one of 10 children. Do all your siblings feel the same way? Are all 10 of them willing to just let it go without any definitive answers to the questions of who killed your father?
I think we've let it go already. I mean, many years ago, as I said, if we hadn't let this go, it would have destroyed us. And so we've let go. As I said, we are very divine people. We believed in the grace of the Almighty God to carry us through I mean, the difficult times are not now. It was when we were kids, you know, 20, 21, going through university without your father and going through the trauma at the time. Now we are matured, we've lived with it, and we thank God for bringing us this far. And so there's nothing that we are holding on to. And we will never hate anybody for this. I pray for God's guidance and forgiveness for those who committed this crime. I'm sure it will be living on their conscience, and I'm sure they know themselves. I mean, quite clearly from the report, the SIB report, and at the time, maybe some of you were very young, it was difficult even to get hold of that SIB report. And if I tell you who gave me one copy, which I still keep, you'll be surprised.
Who gave you?
May he rest in perfect peace. But a lot of people got destroyed by this whole crime. And I think as a country, we should learn from it. As a people, we should love one another. We may have political differences, we may disagree with people, but we should treat ourselves better and place the national interest paramount. Let's make it what binds us together. I think the things that hold us together as a people are far more than the things that divide us. So those who seek to divide our country with political expediency should stop. And the majority of us who believe in our nation and working together have to learn lessons from the hurt and how the Almighty God has been able to use some of us to be able to forget the past and move on and be happy and not be bitter. Because there can be life once you believe in the Almighty and the forgiveness of sins. And so let's continue to pray to God to hold our peace together and even to bless those who did this. You know, when you commit a crime, you don't know you commit a crime. We need God's forgiveness for all of them. And let's work together. I think that after 36, 37 years, we may never find it, but I know that those who know it, know it. Let's all carry on and enjoy our country, Ghana.
Let you go. General Nunu Mensah has talked about learning lessons. Do you think our country has moved on from that time in terms of improvement? Do you think such a thing could never happen in today's Ghana?
Well, I mean, recently, we saw what happened when the mob violence, people getting killed, the sad loss of a military officer, and I'm saying that the potential is there. And we have to learn serious lessons, and perhaps you, the media, can help. The strident political rivalry that we persecute or we prosecute all the time and not bringing the national interest to the fore. And I think the media has a big role to play, and to get people of like minds, a critical mass of people who are true patriots, who are prepared to put the nation above partisan interest. Those are the kind of people who can lead this country and heal our country. So there are still difficulties. And I look at the abrasiveness of our politics and the framing up of people, the propaganda, and now with social media, people can just plot lies about people that do not exist and carry it on and try and destroy people. And these things are fun, and I've been a victim of such a thing, you know. So I say that we should learn from these things and be each other's keeper. This country is too beautiful to destroy, and there's enough space in this country for all of us, and you don't have to be at the top of the political pile. Everybody can make a contribution to the country in your small area. You don't have to be at the top of the political pile. You understand me? So it appears sometimes the aggression in our politics to be the alpha male or to take control of our system sometimes drives us to maltreat our fellow Ghanaians. And I think that we should look at the pain and the trouble we've been through the over 60 years of our independence, and by now we should be sharpening the way we do things and do things better for ourselves.
That's a point well made.
Mr. Japon, thank you so much for allowing us into your home, and indeed allowing all of Ghanaians who are watching you at the moment into your home as well, into your family, bringing you, well, some way, somehow making you relive a part of your childhood. Thank you so much for your time. Kwabena Japon there, he's a son of one of the judges who were slain. So he spoke about social media. He spoke about, I mean, he was talking about learning lessons from what has happened. And he says that he looks at the abrasive nature of our politics, right? And he spoke about social media, which is a very good point, Kojo.
Yes, indeed.
To move on and talk about what's happening on social media. And, Aisha Ibrahim.
Of course,
there's a name I wanted to, but Aisha, let's go on.
Social media is buzzing, and I'm so amazed about, the kind of viewership and engagement this piece has garnered on social media. I can tell you I have about over 1,000 messages on WhatsApp, on Twitter. It's buzzing. On Facebook, it's a whole lot of conversation going on there. Let me start from WhatsApp as we try to pull some Facebook messages. And I'll start from Abdul Ghaffar from Tamale. He says, "Thank you from the deep down of my heart to you all at Multimedia. May the good Lord bless you for the wonderful work." And we say thank you too for watching. From David Inakachi, he says, "Who killed the judges? Single crime or organized crime, God will judge. Still a mysterious narrative. So who killed Yana, Yakubu, and Dani? Isa Mobila, Hawa Yakubu," and he goes on. "In fact, who beat Latif Idris of Multimedia?" Okay, so he's asking so many questions. And then this one is from Kwesi Baini, former editor of the Daily Guide. He says, "What's the Gehok connection? The invasion of parliament by Gehok workers led by Amate Kwe, the consumption of meals of MPs and destruction of things in parliament and subsequent dismissals of some Gehok staff just made him popular or conspirator of the 81 coup. It was not Gehok as an institution. If the documentary had included one or two members of the SIB, perhaps it would have been seriously enriched." And for your information, we're bringing more on this. This is not the end of it. We are bringing more. So watch out for all of these in our next episode. Now, this one is coming from, he didn't add his name, and he says, okay, so let me pick this one, which he also didn't add his name. He says, "This era is quite peaceful. Let's pray for their souls. As I'm a Catholic, we believe in that through purgatory. May their souls rest in peace." My question is, if Rawlings, even though Ametekwe is killed, could this act be a false pretense? Because PNDC was ruling at that time and could have condoned the abduction which led to the murder. And Amate Kwe could have also... Okay, I don't quite get that message. And this one also says, in my view, Brigadier Nunu says President J.J. Rawlings could have known about the arrest, but not the murder of the judges and soldiers. Known as in ordering it or got to know after? Okay, those are some questions he's asking. Let me read this one from Baba. He says, from the narrative, I strongly believe that we cannot get to the bottom of this matter. In fact, a very complicated issue to deal with. And a lot more of the messages. This one says, who killed the judges? It's clear to every Ghanaian now about the killers of the judges. Posterity would judge us and not Supreme Court judges. And this one says, I agree with Mr. Japan perfectly. How come? Okay, so my simple question is that why didn't the documentary team interview Kojo Yanka, the graphic editor? So we're picking all of this, and I said this is not the last of it. We're bringing more on this. And this one is from, okay, so let's go on Facebook. A lot more of your messages are there. I'll come back to WhatsApp and pick more of your messages, and I'll start with PSHG, who says, who killed the judges? Answer, soldiers. Simple. Now let's start thinking about Ghana. And Apia Kusi says all the coup plotting were bloodless, but Rawlings's one was bloody murdered military officers, state leaders, judges, pastors, traders. We have to ban coup ceremony. It's evil. And Dave Denge says, my dad, who joined the Ghana police in 1954, told me that the military abused the coup without the knowledge of Rawlings. Theo Jones says, JJ, please. Okay, that's quite harsh there. Let's get more on Facebook. Nelson Chumesi says, today the Germans are still investigating the Holocaust to know what went wrong and prosecuting all soldiers who had involvement in it. Paul says the execution of Amatekwe helped to cover the tracks of the real perpetrators, but it certainly wasn't enough to deceive the general public. Apia Kusi comes in to say, coming 31st December, coup ceremony should be banned. Jehovah Allah, God will punish Ghana government if they, okay, that's a bit too harsh there. Apia Kusi says the small Scottish boy captured as like slaves in his 30s. Oh, yet in some Palm Canary is still in captivity by AFRC leader. Richard Clarkpa says this government is our problem. Okay, let's forget the past and think about economic growth. Okay, so Apia Kusi comes to say God has listened to our prayers of the victims. Rawlings insults all the leaders, but no one tries to reply. The scarcity will be reduced. Francis Yeboah says those people who are saying this documentary is not relevant come to Germany. So telecast the documentary of Adolf Hitler. How was the World War II started? The monster days of the Holocaust. Apia Kusi says it was Rawlings' regime with curfew, so who should be blamed? Rawlings and his family might be okay. And Nana Ajiman says, I remember the curfew I witnessed in Kumasi. We left our fufu covered in the mortar and went to hide in our rooms because it was 6 p.m. A lot of the comments are on Facebook. And Nelson Chumesi says, some of you watching don't really understand what this documentary stands for. If you don't know your past, you can't move into the future. History is dynamic. And Nelson Chumesi says, comes back to say, Alexander, please don't play tribal into this. It wasn't only Akans who were killed. Get your facts right. Innocent Ghanaians were killed too. And Dennis Brooke says, well, the entire piece is okay. Nanajiman says, very educated but very sensitive to the family they left behind. May God continue to be with their respective families. Apia Kusi says, Navy Commander Amedome to 50,000 old cities loan just to help our nation. Okay, I don't quite get this message. And let me pick some few more comments on WhatsApp. This one says, such a fantastic documentary by Multimedia, but Rawlings and Captain Chikata will pay for the death of innocent. Okay, so we and this one is coming from, you didn't also add your name. He says, if you get the killers, what will you do? Okay, so that's a question he's asking. And right, a lot of your comments are coming. This one says, Okay, so Kojo, you should ask the billion question where the police who were doing the investigation were victimized by the PNDC. So that's a question to, an advice to you, Kojo. You should ask that million question. And it says, in fact, I'm confused. And it says it's because, however, critical examination, we should not turn our eyes to naked truth. Kojo Chikata Rawlings plus Amethepekwe himself are the real victims of criminals. Additionally, the judges and the investigative team were afraid of the culprit. Mr. Quay didn't do the shooting alone, which should have been looked at critically. Some of your messages on Facebook. Back to you, Gifty Kojo. Was being joined by
Aisha Ibrahim there with what's going on social media. So we understand, like Aisha said, that this is buzzing social media. Raymond Akwa has just joined. If you see, Raymond Akwa has just joined. So it's a packed house, right? This is special assignment, and it's special assignment indeed. I'm here with Raymond Akwa. I don't know whatever he's looking for in that book, but Raymond is the one who did this documentary. Raymond, it's good to have you. Kojo Yangson is here helping us, you know, with thought-provoking perspectives as well, and Aisha Ibrahim with social media.
Raymond to explain to the general public
those who are asking you the questions on
we
social
didn't
media.
get Mr. Rawlings
Certainly.
and Chikata to be involved in this documentary.
You've got it. Raymond will be answering. But let me get on the phone line now, because I've got Ni Magno Okokwe on the line now. We understand that he's a former prisons director. Now, all of the prisons we understand came to meet you, sir, but later on you also went to prison. It's good to have you this evening. Mr. Okokwe, can you hear me? Hello, Mr. Okokwe?
Yeah, thank you.
Right. I understand that.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I understand that these prisoners came to meet you in prison.
Well, come again, please.
Mr. Okokwe, you need to listen to me on the telephone and not on your TV. So can you turn down the volume on your TV set?
Okay, the line is very faint.
Okay, do turn down the line, the sound on your TV set, and listen to me on the phone. Is that okay?
Okay, okay.
Very well. So I was asking for you to just confirm for me. I understand you were in prison, and before that, all of these prisoners came to meet you there as well, because at the time you were the prisons director.
Oh, the line is very faint.
Let's work it out. Let's work it out. Let's get our producers to work it out. We'll get back to you. Mr. Magnus Okokwe there. He's a former prisons director. We're trying to get his thoughts on this documentary so far. Raymond, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
I can say that he's not had enough sleep. But the question that's begging answers, Raymond, why did you not interview Captain Kojo Chikata, former President Rawlings, Kojo Yanka, all of these people, actors in this
maybe
story?
I'll start from the last one.
Okay.
I spoke to Mr. Kojo Yanka. His exact words were, all the things he's ever wanted to say, he's had to say.
Okay.
It's pretty simple. They are all in his book, his autobiography, the one that he talks about what happened in this particular case when he assumed the position. So for the avoidance of that, and because what is in there captures exactly what is actually in the book, I didn't want to repeat that.
Okay,
the
so
book in page 45 states clearly, it talks about how he got to know that. So he says on Thursday, 18th of August 1983, Matoke was executed. Now, on the afternoon of the day after the execution, Flight Lieutenant Rawlings invited editors of the mainstream media and selected foreign media representatives to a press briefing at the Ministry of Information, with the Minister Joyce I present. Subject matter was a playback of the interview with Amate Quay, in which Quay had said in part, and I'm quoting, the same thing that was quoted in his report, and we put up the report in that particular, it says, tell Captain Chikata to forgive me. He, this is into bracket, he knew nothing about the murder of the judges and the retired army officer. This is into brackets, but the quote continues this way. Please give all my entitlements to my children. And he continues to say that shock rang through the room. Eyes were exchanged by the editors. Shocking for various reasons. Why did Rawlings choose to interview Amate Quay Was this an opportunity for Amateko not to now tell the world that he was influenced wrongly to drag the name of Captain Kojo Chikata into these statements of the court about the murderers? And why play back this chilling revelation to media personnel? For me as a newsman, this was very newsworthy. My editorial board agreed that we carry the story. The graphic front page story, which we put up in the report, stated Amateko's last words. The edition sold very fast on the newsstands. I noticed to my surprise, the editor of the Ghanaian Times, the sister states newspaper, did not carry the story.
Okay. But the editor was in that meeting.
Yes, that is what he says, yeah.
Okay.
Neither did the Ghanaian, did the GBC, that's the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. We could have done a second edition. So he talks about the suspension. After this incident happened, in the afternoon of the day, Miss Joyce Ayu walked into his office with a letter. She handed me a letter from the office. I was to proceed on indefinite suspension for gross indiscretion and bad taste in publishing and thereby reducing to the level of a cheap journalistic scoop. The last words of a pertinent man. So these are the things he wrote in there. He says that that is what he heard. He did not get the tape itself.
But the tape was played for him to listen.
Yes, that is what he heard and wrote down. Those lines I just read to you is what he also put in the story. Okay. And that he was shocked later on that he was relieved of his post as editor of the graphic.
He did that. And you heard Mr. Rollins explain at the NRC.
Very good. So
why that decision?
Yes, so that was the account of Kojoyanka. Okay. Clearly in consonance with what Mr. Rollins has said. So there was no dispute anyway.
Okay, we need to wrap up. Mr. Rollins.
Yeah. Okay, so I tried. I think virtually everybody in this institution tried to get me. On several occasions, I have sat face to face with Mr. Rollins and he's told me stories unrelated to the subject matter that I went there for. I have slept through that interaction several times, but he's never gotten the chance and opportunity to speak to me on this matter on record.
So he said he spoke to you
every time. He would tell me that, oh, you will not do on record. Let's talk. Then he would tell me stories related, but not on this matter. Okay. He tell me other stories there. Then I have questions. Then he said, oh, I forgot about those ones. When you're doing the official interview, you will do so. So at some point in time, they say litigation must come to an end. At some point in time, the report ought to be done. So I begged him on several occasions, but he just was not willing to. The last thing he told me was that I was putting together a book. Okay. And that was going to be a quintessential part of the book. Okay. So I was even saying that if you leak one page on this matter to me in the book, I'll be very pleased. He said he will call me when he's done with the book in the nearest future. Okay. So that attempt was made. For Captain Chikata, it's the same trial. Indeed, the last attempt was to get through Chachu Chikata. And Chachu Chikata told me that the man in his current state is unwilling to engage in any search. Okay. So if you do recall, because Chachu Chikata had at all times represented him, that is why we spoke to him. Again, one other person who also represented him, Obeda Samoa, told me that the man is not in the state to engage in some of these conversations. Okay. So okay, but Raymond, we need to wrap up. We really need to wrap up. We've eaten into the time for our nightly news. But then, is this the end? Is this the end of no, as we did say, this is a series on crimes that shook the nation. Okay. I mean, if you listen and watch properly, you get the answers that you want. Of course, I mean, not everybody will be satisfied with the details they've had in there, but they should watch out for more. There's another one that is basically going to do with scars of the revolution. Okay. It will come up pretty soon too. Okay. And others. I've seen some suggesting the other ones we should take on. We will take on so far as it fits into the broader scope of the crimes that shook the nation. The crimes that shook the nation. Raymond wanted to go on and on, but unfortunately, I have the we don't have a response on the
we don't have all of the time. But he's also spoken.
Bring that to you on the AM show.
He's also spoken. He's also spoken. So I believe that we've heard his version of it all. Kojo, thank you so much for. No, I was actually going to say Raymond.
Thank you. Yes, Raymond, I didn't know why you were going to thank him.
Raymond, thank you so much for coming, and indeed, congratulations to the team, the documentary team. They've done this
wonderful
great
team. Yeah.
Elvis Kwashi, who's the executive producer. Shout out to him at home, Elvis, and the entire team. Kojo, thanks for coming and helping us.
And there'll be more of this on the AM show. So tune in from 6 a.m. Raymond will join us with the details of what General Nunu Mensah said to the committee.
And that will be an exciting morning show. You don't want to miss it. My name is Gifty Andopia. Many thanks for your time. But Kojo, NS Kojo Menu is standing by with our nightly news.
Who killed the judges? A Joy News special assignment on crimes that shook the nation.